Booyah, and it's time for the Game Sports Podcast. There's your host, David McCaig Jr. The game is powered by 91 Network and featured on Spaces. 91N is a YouTube channel where you can check video editions of the game on, as well as other podcasts. Spaces is through Village Media and Soo Today. You can check out Soo Today to check and find your space. The Game Sports Podcast is located on the sports and hockey space on Spaces through the Sault Ste. Marie Spaces page. Now, listen, the Game Sports Podcast is not just found on 91N or Spaces. We're found anywhere just by searching us on Google. I even checked ChatGPT, but you can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on social media such as TikTok, Instagram, all at the Game Sports Podcast. Now, you may have been directed here through one of those platforms. If you were, hit like, follow, subscribe, interact, especially with our recent clips on TikTok, which has definitely got a lot of traction, in particular about Bo Bichette and Kyle Tucker, and another one about the Canadian Olympic team roster. Oof, there was a lot of feedback on there. It seems a lot of you were really upset that I didn't have Nick Suzuki on that team. So, look, interact, we like it. And if I could go back, I said this last week, I would change one of my goaltenders, but you can't go back, especially after it's been recorded. And I believe the team that I have made is the team that's going to win and maybe succeed on that atrocious ice there in Italy. But tonight, I'm talking about hockey right now, but we are going to have hockey tonight on this segment. But you're going to have me for the first couple minutes before I bring in Brendan McCarthy and a new, I guess I can say, guest at this time, but someone who will be joining our show from a here and there perspective, a coworker and colleague of Brendan McCarthy. I'm going to leave it to him to introduce him for the Top Shelf segment. And then I'm going to have Jordan Trudeau be on for his Chuck-a-Puck segment. Then you're going to have me again solo at the end doing In the Pocket solo, okay? Solo, Top Shelf, Chuck-a-Puck, solo. And for solo, you'll find out what the point is at the beginning here in a moment. But at the end, I'll be doing In the Pocket for you. So that is the agenda. But a quick shout out I want to give, shout out to two birthdays. One that's upcoming to a friend of the show and previous host for 3 months when we started in Sault Ste. Marie. This individual jumped on to help out until we were able to have our show fully launched, fully functional the way that we wanted to do the show. And he was a great support in getting it off the ground and just being a part of the show from a casual basis. Pat DeLuca, longtime friend of mine, his birthday is coming up. But today, as we record December the 16th, it is Dane Hantro's birthday, the one of the original hosts on the Game Sports Podcast, or co-host, whatever title you want to give him as. He has been away for the past year, but he is going to be making a return back to the podcast very soon. So happy birthday to our friend and my close friend, Dane Hantro. Hope your day is terrific, brother. Now, you may hear this on the 16th, 17th, to give you a reminder that this will be the last news show until 2026, okay? Now, of course, we have the World Juniors going on from a hockey perspective, but you have to keep an eye on our social media pages for that. Now, I've talked about a lot of places you can go. I've given shout outs. We're about 3 minutes, 30 seconds in. I only have a few minutes for my first topic that I want to kick the show off on. And it's unfortunate I don't have one of my main sidekicks here with me today, and that's Alex Parr, who has obviously been away from the show for a little bit, but hopefully to have Parr back on soon. If you listened to a few episodes ago, we were calling him out because we didn't know where he was, but everything's okay with Parr. We were just saying that. So we hope that Alex can come back on very soon. We definitely miss him, but we're going to be talking about WWE here right off the hop. And with this topic, I only have a minute or so or 2 minutes to really get into this. So maybe we could still save this for a future when Alex is back on, or I can dive into it a little bit more. But I'm going to finally give you something from a summary perspective. WWE is fake. If you didn't know it was fake, well, sorry to break it to you. Okay. It's not like I'm telling you something else. Okay. I'm telling you how it is. Wrestling, I've known that it's been an entertainment factor since I watched it in the Attitude Era. I remember watching wrestling in the early thousands, late 90s, sorry, is when I started watching it with actually my sister. And I came right in at the right time. The Attitude Era, The Rock, Stone Cold, Triple H, all the crew that you can think of. One of my favorite matches of all time is Hulk Hogan and The Rock. And one of my favorite matches, one of many favorite matches that I have. And I remember being a kid, just being in awe of what this was. And as I got older, I obviously disconnected from wrestling a little bit, but a lot of that, The Rock left, Stone Cold wasn't around as much, The Undertaker was there, but wasn't there. And, you had some change, and obviously there was a big adjustment period, but near that time when I was still watching John Cena. I remember him coming out for his first time and just a reaction to who is this guy, right? And this guy turned out to be the GOAT, the obviously, having the every title and being such a Grand Slam champion is the word I'm looking for. But 17-time world the undisputed heavyweight title. Look, the champion of the WWE 17 times has never been done, right? And yes, it is entertainment. That is what wrestling is. It is entertainment. And I know that. So I'm highlighting that before I even say, but this is still a sports podcast and still sports is entertainment. Okay. And wrestling, okay, when John Cena turned heel, that broke the internet. And you can listen to a previous edition of the Game Sports podcast when Alex and I were talking about it. And Alex was there for that. And being in that building in Toronto when Cody Rhodes was the victim of that heel turn with The Rock, Travis Scott being there, it was unbelievable what was going on, and the internet broke when John Cena finally turned heel. That heel run was 5-ish months, give or take, and then eventually you start seeing the transition back to John Cena, to who we know John Cena as. And then as that happens, that's where I think the wheels really started to fall off on this whole farewell tour, okay? The heel turn and up until the end of the heel turn, I give this a solid 8 out of 10 by Triple H and the content team in WWE. But after that happened, it was severely downhill. My interest was gone. My want to see when Cena was appearing was gone. And despite he is the GOAT, these last few matches, Dominic Mysterio, yeah, I know he had to get the Grand Slam championships, but Gunther, look, where was the Chris Jericho, the Edges, where was The Rock? And obviously there's contracts, there's debate on, and I'm going over time with this as Brendan McCarthy and our new guests wait in the waiting room. But to get to my point, after John Cena's heel turn, it was great. The heel turn was great. Everything was great for the heel turn. Then as he turned good after that fight with Cody Rhodes, that's where everything went downhill. And yes, it's fake and it's scripted, but they did this farewell tour incorrectly. I think Triple H, I think he really loves the booze, it seems, but he shouldn't be happy about what the outcome of this was. What was the point of The Rock coming out and doing that with Cena? Where was this? What was the point in all of this? That is what I wanted. I wanted to hear, I wanted to hear that on Saturday Night Main Event fight after Gunther. I will still say that I think Cena and The Rock close out this little rivalry at WrestleMania 42. I still think there's got to be something, but him leaving his shoes, Cody Rhodes waiting, and everything happening with that, it does seem like the GOAT John Cena has done with WWE. But what was the point of that heel turn? What was the point? Everything was just awful, atrocious, brutal. Whatever word you want to think of, the word I'm going to go with is atrocious, Triple H. After the heel turn, he turned good again. What was the point of the heel turn? The content team dropped the ball, missed a lot of opportunities out, except on one match against AJ Styles. That was one great nod to wrestling and a lot of tribute to the Attitude Era and people that John Cena has fought, etc. That's one credit that I'll give since the heel turn. But heel turn, great. Heel turn process the whole time, good work. Tail end, Cody Rhodes, AJ Styles. That match against AJ Styles, the only bright. Everything else was absolutely horrendous, was trash. They didn't do the rest of the tour any justice or appropriately, and they missed on a lot of opportunity. And I hope there's more, but it seems like there isn't. But I got to give this whole overall farewell tour, because only 50% good and 50% bad. A 50%, a 5 out of 10 was not where it needed to be, and they dropped the ball. But best of luck to John Cena if this is it. Heck of a wrestling and entertainment career. He's obviously got his acting going on, and it seems like, okay, despite being done, he is still one of the greatest, if not the greatest wrestlers of all time. And when I think of wrestling, I am going to think of John Cena and think of these names, but my favorite is still The Rock. And I would have literally celebrated to hear The Rock's music. That would have been something very, very good to see. Triple H and the content team dropped the ball. That's all I'll say to that. Okay. What do you think of John Cena's heel turn, farewell tour, and all this that has happened? What do you think out of 10, out of 5, whatever grade you want to give it? I said 5 out of 10. That's what I'll leave it as. I was really invested in that heel turn. Like I said, that was so great to do. The thugonomics with CM Punk. All of that was just so well done. Cody Rhodes flipping him back. That would have been perfect time for The Rock to come back. Since they dropped the ball on that, it would have been a perfect time for him to come back at the end, but it didn't happen. Him tapping out, I will say this. I know people don't agree with it. He has a motto about never give up. He's tapping out on his own terms. That's what that means. A lot of wrestlers lose their last match, okay? And as they lose their last match, it seems like they're losing to Gunther. But at the end of the day, okay, it still wasn't where it needed to be. So please comment below. And as we wait for Brendan and our new guests to come on by, seems like one of them is logging in just now. Evan will be logging in. We're just going to be waiting for Brendan McCarthy as we continue to go here on the Game Sports podcast. The joys of doing this right off the hop and diving right into it and people waiting. I feel bad that Evan and Brendan had to wait in the wings while, I had to talk about this John Cena heel turn and John Cena with wrestling, but the joys of this too is internet connection, which we're experiencing a little challenges here in the studios tonight. So nonetheless, I see Evan is in. We're going to be waiting for Brendan to officially log in as well and come on as well. So first things, I know Brendan wanted to do the introduction to Evan, so I'll allow that to happen. I won't take his thunder. I do see you ready there, Evan. It's nice to see you. This is the first time I get to meet Evan. So before we win and as we wait for Brendan to come on, what I want to remind listeners on is when you're looking for the Game Sports podcast on TikTok and on Instagram, make sure that you are doing the interaction, the work that we do. And the students in the background, Taryn, Danica, and Jerry, I want to give them a shout out as well. I should have from the beginning, but a lot of great work from the background. But as I say that, as we were stalling to wait for Brendan to come on, Brendan, my friend, thank you very much for your patience. The joys of internet and connection, my friend. I said that I would introduce you, say hi, so you can do that first, but you wanted to introduce our new friend on the show, so I'm going to give you the floor to do that.
Dave, thanks so much, buddy. Thanks so much, buddy. This week on the Game Sports podcast, we are pleased to be joined by Evan Dowbiggin. He's joining the Top Shelf segment this week. Evan is the stats guru of TSN. He runs the TSN Stat Center X account. He is an author and has a wealth of hockey history knowledge. He is a 5-time Simpsons trivia champion, a long-suffering Cowboys fan, a lover of the Habs, and a lover of Starbucks Farmers Wraps. Evan, my coworker and my good buddy, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the podcast.
So, Evan, it's very nice to meet you. I know we haven't had a formal introduction. We'll have to save that for off air, give it time. But nonetheless, so stats guru, love that. We haven't had too many stats gurus on the show. Self-proclaimed stats gurus, we'll like to say. But as he gave you that beautiful introduction, okay, I got 2 questions. I need to know more about the stats. And number 2, the Simpsons trivia. Okay, so those are the first 2 that I'm giving you off the hop.
Well, the stats side of things is, I guess, just an interest that I've had for, I don't know, since high school, probably, in terms of when I was supposed to be writing down notes for class. I was reciting stats in a notebook that I probably had memorized or just been scouring through, just testing my own sort of like knowledge and obsession. And that parlayed to coming on to TSN about 16 years ago, a while back. I mean, working in the newsroom on Sports Center. And then eventually they realized one of my strengths anyway was to know everything about a history of sports, or particularly the numbers, but also some anecdotes and facts. And there was a stats nighttime or a daytime guy for a while, and they needed somebody at night to come in and then set up an old Twitter account and everything called Stat Center, and I still run that today. And I just do a variation of other things, but mainly that's what I've been working on at Canada Sports Leader for the last decade, I guess now. And so, I'm definitely helped up by something like StatHead, which is Sports References subscription to basically look up to advanced searches on a lot of different things for all the major sports you could think of. So from football, hockey, basketball, whatever I need to, baseball. So I'll give a little bit of credit to that to help focus searches when you got to know how to look it up and where to look it up, mind you. But that's one of the keys to quick access knowledge when you ask me something. Yeah.
Yes.
Not always the most wonderful existence for the last 30 plus years, but I can't call it worse than being a hardcore Leafs fan, would you?
I've never been. It's challenging, but this is one thing. The Habs have won the most cups. They are the last Canadian team to win a cup, and at least they made the Stanley Cup Finals recently. Tough loss against Tampa Bay. They beat Toronto to get to the next round there. A nice little comeback down 3-1. Leafs like to choke. So you know what? I will say something for you as a Habs fan. There's a lot to look forward to. I think there's a lot of promise with that roster, a lot of opportunity. And as a Toronto Maple Leaf fan, that is something that's hard to swallow. But Brendan, do you have something to say to that?
I mean, Evan likes to remind me yearly about that collapse in 2021 by the Toronto Maple Leafs. Not ideal, but we're moving forward. It's been a crazy couple of days in the hockey world. Quinn Hughes to Minnesota, Ari and Skinner trading places in net, Dart out long term with a shoulder injury. How does that affect his participation in the Olympics? And Kevin Adams out as GM in Buff, Jarmo Kekalainen in. Let's stick in the East, and this is a question for both of you guys. We'll start with Dowbiggin. Is the Eastern Conference this year just competitive or just simply average?
I think, in the long run, that could change. I mean, I think it's like up for grabs still with, almost over, I guess, half a season.
I'll touch on 2 quick points there, Brandon, because obviously, given time, I'll say one thing about Buffalo. That move didn't surprise me, but the bring in was surprising. I don't know if Kekalainen's the guy to get the job done there. To be straight with you, he didn't do a fabulous job in Columbus. I feel like they should have went off grid there. Former player, someone who could be, did kind of on the outside, like a different perspective than what someone who's already been in the league. So that's all I'll say about the Kevin Adams piece. Buffalo is an absolute dumpster fire that I feel bad their fans have not been treated to anything nice to the Buffalo Sabres. So I don't think that's a step in the right direction. But the standings, you mentioned it last week, Brennan, drunk.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah.
That's, and I know I wish I can think of a better term, but right now I want to just use that word drunk. I like it because, it's something can change tonight, let alone tomorrow. All this movement, it's great to see those. So you can say parity is a more appropriate word, but it's not, because you mentioned it. And Evan was touching on it. I think teams just not performing where they need to. Florida's been battling injuries. Toronto's been battling injuries. Still no excuse for Toronto, though, because I don't think that's the problem. But teams I don't think are performing to what they need to do. But you look at the West, Evan, you brought up a great point. Look at Colorado. That's a team that looks sexy on the
wagon.
Okay, absolutely sexy out there. Okay. And Vegas, I don't even want, but Anaheim Ducks, excuse me, are the Mighty Ducks back? Do I need to look? Like, what's going on? Okay, am I in the 90s? Am I watching D1 and D2 with watching Goldberg coming down the flying V? Like this is just, this year has been so unique. But there's the Eastern Conference outside the West. The West, I think, has a bit more of that usual sightings that we see with some change because of growth with teams. The East is drunk. Teams that are there, it's not parity. These teams just haven't met expectations yet. And teams that also haven't been able to meet expectations because of injuries. No, not Toronto. Florida being that. Barkov and Tkachuk are big losses. They have those 2 guys back. They're going to be top of the division. So East is a little bit more open. That's why teams like Toronto, Montreal, Evan will agree to that, Washington, these teams that should be higher up should already be taking advantage of what's going on, but they're not able to because the Eastern Conference is just not making sense.
Bodes well for the Panthers, I'll tell you that. I mean, now we're seeing why maybe they won the conference 3 years in a row. Nobody else has got the game enough to step up to them. Still not seeing it.
So fill in the blank, guys. Other than the Central, Colorado, Dallas, Minnesota, the most formidable division in the league is blank.
Outside the Central?
Outside the Central.
Yeah. Well, I said a lot of nice things about the West, so I'm going to say Pacific, just because I think, maybe the Oilers will get together as well. Kings, I mean, they haven't tanked or anything, but they haven't impressed too much. I mean, they've got 9 overtime losses or something. So they're competitive. They're in games. They're just not getting enough contributions offensively to finish the job most nights. So I guess I would still probably, side with that. I know the teams like the Canucks, they probably aren't going to find their way back into things at all. And they got Anaheim up there. And I think they're for real to be still up in battling for second or third in that division, or who knows, even better by the end of the season, because they have some things to learn, but there's a talent level there that's finally breaking through, and it's sustainable because there's a lot of guys who are in their early development years who are all getting it together at the same time, particularly Carlson and Cutter Goche. They look like an amazing duo together. And whether they tail off or not, I still think that team's going to hang around in the Pacific. I just don't see the Metro and Atlantic teams having, I don't know, maybe no one's going to really break out and go on a dominant run this year. There's so many flaws on a lot of those teams for me. Like, whether it be even if it's a young team like the Canadians, they just can't find a hot goalie. They can't find a defensive game. Like, they're going out there when they get a 2 or 3 goal lead, they can't hold on to it. So, I mean, there's a lot of real flawed teams out there. And whereas Anaheim, I think maybe there's low pressure. They're just playing with house money and they're fun.
Well said. Pacific, simple as that. I'm aligned to essentially everything Evan said. I was hovering over the Metropolitan, but when I look at the Pacific, I'm more interested. That's why I'm going that route. I'm just more interested in that Pacific division. That's such a cool story. LA hasn't reached. Edmonton's gonna come out booming soon. You're just waiting for McDavid and that to get to Christmas and New Year's form. Like for me too.
Evan, do you have a Stanley Cup final prediction?
Wow. It's funny because everybody gets ready Colorado and stuff, but in the West, historically, usually in the most decade in themselves, team that tears up the regular season sort of peaks too early.
That's a good answer. I still got to keep mine, Brendan. I said Florida, Vegas, Florida with the 3-peat. So I'm going against the stat pick. I'm not going to change my pick, and this is the first year I haven't picked Toronto since 2020. So
I got Florida, Dallas. So we're all kind of sticking with Florida, it seems.
Yeah. So there you go. That you know what? I want to make sure I touch on what's given time. Yeah. Quinn Hughes. That needs to be chatted about here from your perspective, Brent. I want to hear your view on it. Then I want to hear the stats side of it about the success of this. I don't know if you have looked into it this much, Evan, but looking at, obviously Dubas is from the Soo, so there's always been Corsi and projection. I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at more Marco Rossi, the potential, all that stuff. Brennan, to you with the reaction of the trade, then Evan, yours. But if you can do a little stat spin on it about success of trading a franchise player outside of Wayne Gretzky, what's the success rate on that? I don't know if that's a stat that's been discussed. What is the success rate of trading a cornerstone franchise player that's really helped the team, or has it helped out the team that's made that trade? Because I think this was a fair trade. I'm sorry. I think Vancouver is not bad for doing this. They got something for someone, Mitch Marner. They got someone for someone, for something. They got something for someone. They didn't lose an asset. Great asset management. They got a good top 6 forward potential, great offensive, smart top 4 defenseman, if not top 2, a future pick. Was a good trade in my opinion. That's my quick reaction. Brandon,
I think it was a good trade. Effectively 4 first-round picks going the other way, right? And I also love, Ev, you can take care of the stats perspective, but I also just love how a GM is saying, fit, I'm going for it. Life is too short. I'm going all in. And he was so casual about it too. He was like, yeah, I was just making meatballs and we got it done. And I love that. And Quinn Hughes after in his first media avail, I don't know if you listened to it, Ev, but he was like, yeah, I appreciate, that a GM went, all in, fully on board and got it done, ink to paper. So I just love that a GM has the audacity and the confidence just to be like, I'm making it happen. I don't care. Yeah, and looking at the lines too of Minnesota now, like top to bottom, they are building an incredibly competitive and talented team. And Minnesota is a great hockey market too. Like not only just with hockey, it's a great sports market. Like Twins, Vikings. Like I've never been to Minnie, but I feel like it'd be an underrated little guys trip to rip around in the summer, go watch some baseball, or in the summer go watch some baseball, or go see the Wild. Like the fans are nuts. So
that going on at the same time too.
Pardon me, Ev?
Oh, so you got to go into, and all of those things are going on at the same time. Like you got the ball 4, I guess, basketball, baseball. Well, maybe not the Vikings. 3 out of 4 ain't bad.
Maybe Dave could splurge on the Game Sports podcast crew and send us round trip flights to Minnie and back.
That's the dream. I think Minnesota is still a second line C away. if they can get a second line centerman, I don't know how they're floating around, but I'm going to throw a name out there. Just going to throw a name out there, okay? And it's not a Toronto guy, so don't get excited, everybody. Pittsburgh's overachieving this year, and I'm not saying Crosby, so get that out of your excitement, too. I'm not saying Crosby. Evgeny Malkin. I feel like Pittsburgh's out of it. Veteran guy that they can retain, hold some money. Minnesota moves out of value. I think that would be a second line center that Minnesota can disperse as a second or third line C to really still fit the mold of Minnesota. I'm just going to throw that out there. I think they need one more, like a second line center, or even a third line center to kind of move up or do around the lineup, kind of fill that role where Marco Rossi was, and he was doing a pretty good job filling in, more so than obviously that end. I'm just going to say it, Evgeny Malkin to Minnesota. Early prediction. I think that
I don't hate
makes
it.
sense. I think having a second line center puts this team in that contention over the threshold of being within that Colorado, Vegas,
The
Dallas,
dogfight.
Being in the fight. You need to be deep in the playoffs. And Florida has said, look at the guys they have. Was Carter Verhaeghe a sexy name? Let me ask you that, fellow Leaf fans. What did we get rid of Carter Verhaeghe for? Let me tell you what it was. Nothing.
Michael Grabner? Wasn't it, Ev?
Yeah, I think that nothing.
That might have been how he left. Yeah.
Nothing. Exactly. Nothing. And just one of the fastest player in Leaf jersey history. Or Leaf history, but that aside, gave up on him. Let him go. See you later. Right. And Luke Schenn didn't fit in Toronto, went just a couple different teams, found his mold, won a cup. Look, I'm telling you right now, teams that win cups believe in their prospects, believe in depth, and Florida has signed guys, given guys opportunities. And I think Minnesota, having the prospects that they have that can still come up, they can definitely still fit in some players in this mold, like Malkin, maybe somebody else. But Malkin just really sounds absolutely like a perfect fit to me.
Before we let you go, I forget if I mentioned this in the intro, but Evan Dowbiggin is the co-author of 2 books. One I bought off him last Christmas, Inexact Science. He co-published with his dad, Bruce. Can you tell us where we can find your work at?
Yeah, 2021, Inexact Science came out through CW Press. And then just, I guess in 2024, in about May or so, we released a self-published book called Deal With It. So the trades that stunned the NHL and changed hockey. Inexact Science, I didn't say the subtitle of that one was like 6 drafts that were the most compelling in NHL history. So you got to make sense from those subtitles what each book's about. But you can find those on Amazon. And you can also, in your local bookstore, I believe Inexact Science still available to ones like Indigo. And if you can't find it, then tell them to stock it. But if you look online, you should be able to get it if you're willing to wait a bit longer, obviously, for the shipping and all that. But those are 2 good books that's for any fan of hockey. It'd be great Christmas stocking stuffer. Well, at least the first one is small enough for fitness stocking, but the second one's a little big, bulkier book. But yeah, they both make great gifts for the hockey fan on his family or whatever. Friend or a colleague of yours that's interested in those kind of historical looks that kind of keep things in perspective for fans today. Right?
And you know what we'll do? We'll put a link below in our YouTube.
Perfect.
To do that, Evan, we'd love to have you on a bit more sporadically. I know usually the tripod is myself, Brendan, and Alex. Alex is still MIA. We're still finding him. To increase to $25,000. Just kidding. That's not true. I shouldn't flag that. I'm just saying that as a funny joke. That aside, Evan, I want to say thank you for, of course, taking the time to join and taking the time to come on the pod. One thing I'll say with you guys, I remember, a colleague of yours, both of you, James Duthie, was a guest on this show. And him and I have kept in touch with them a little bit, but kind of not for a little while. But you'll have to mention the podcast of James Duthie, one of our popular guests. And he actually, the story of me having James Duthie on was that it was a Venmo or a gift for a birthday where he gave me a shout out for my birthday. And he said, if you want me to come on your pod, and if I'm good enough to be on your pod, which I laughed, if you wanted to come on, to send me a link via Twitter and I'll respond. And so what I did is I didn't get a response the first thing. So we did a hashtag and I think it had about 72 retweets or something like that when it was Twitter. James saw it and then he reached back out to me and had him on the show. So you're going to have to ask James to see if he remembers the Game Sports Podcast. Evan, if you get a chance, or Brendan.
Well, I've given him copies of both of my books, and he plugged it on one of them. I think he plugged it Exact Science on his Rubber Boots podcast, even though that's not his sports-oriented one.
That's right.
So I mean, next time I'm working on something, I'll drop in and mention about the podcast too. But oh yeah, and by the way, he wants to bring you on or something.
I'd love
Evan and I will work our magic, Dave.
to have him back. I have his email, but I don't want to be that guy to always email him. So if you guys work with him, I'm sure the listeners would love to have James back, because that was a great episode. Oh, it was so fun talking about the Crosby's golden goal. He was there talking about his books, the beauties, right? That book that he does. It's great.
Evan has a more famous last name than I, Dave, so maybe we'll let him craft the email.
I think his last name might be the sexiest and most greatest last name I've ever seen in my life. I'm not kidding. Yes. And Trudes,
hard to pronounce the spell.
I know that you're in the background there, Trudes, and you're kind of on the outside looking in right now, but look at Evan's last name. That is not a typo. That is Dowbiggin.
Don't forget
correct?
it.
I said it correctly.
Don't forget it.
Don't forget it. That is I want to make sure I pronounced it correctly.
Dowbiggin, actually.
Dowbiggin. See
what I mean?
It sounds so much cooler. Like if I was an announcer at hockey, like scored by Evan Doe. Like I get it. They just say your name and they're afraid to say it, but it looks simple. But I think it's the best last name that's been on the show.
Wow.
Yeah, McCaig and McCarthy are boring. Sorry, Brendan.
It's a good trio. In the top six?
Yeah, it is.
Dowbiggin, McCaig, McCarthy. Dowbiggin, McCaig, McCarthy.
Yeah, that's funny. And then,
all right, boys.
All right, Brendan, thank you. Thanks. Evan, thank you for taking the time. We'll see you soon, Evan, and Brendan will be in touch with us. So we're on holidays after this week, Brendan, but we'll keep in touch for when the next one is in the new year.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. See ya.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yes.
All right, take care.
Take care. Jordan Trudeau, my friend, you were waiting. Evan Dowbiggin. Okay, that's a real name. That's a real person. That wasn't AI. Obviously, you could check out his books. He's a statistician, does that work at TSN with Brendan. So that was a stats guy. And the next time we have Evan on, we'll do maybe some sports or statistical facts for you. But we had a lot of topics to talk about top shelf today. We had to talk about Quinn Hughes getting traded. Oh my God. We had to talk about things that are going on in the world of hockey. And speaking of which, perfect transition, okay, to Chuck a Puck. The puck is up there, everybody. If you're on video, I'm pointing to my right. There's a Soo Greyhound puck. I'm too lazy to get up and grab it. And I have a carpet and my baby's going to bed. So I ain't throwing no puck across the room right now. But let's pretend. There, I chucked it. Okay, right at center ice. Trudes, how's it going, my friend?
I'm good. How?
You know what? Great. Christmas is near. It's a busy season, but the snow sucks. But yes, I'm talking weather. If those of you who are not in Canada, if you're in Florida, I don't want to hear it right now. I envy, but it is this is Canada, and this shows hockey right here. And you know what? It's been a lot here in Sault Ste. Marie, but you know what? There's a lot of news when it comes to Major Junior, and there's a lot of news when it comes to Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds as we get near Christmas. So, Trudes, I want you to get into where you want to start with the Major Junior scene.
At Team Canada World Junior Camp right now. So, hey, that's a story that's developing. It was said on the OHL podcast with Mike Farwell from Kitchener. So they were talking this week about Carter George, possibly the Owen Sound attack after they kind of fell off in the month of November and into December. They had a really, really strong start to the season. They're kind of dipping down into the bottom 5 in the Western Conference playoff margin. So with an existing NHL drafted goalie in Tristan Bennett, they could be looking at trading Carter George for a large haul and working around their young core. And on that podcast, it was also said that London could be a seller. So I tuned into that this week just to get some insights. But that's kind of the biggest news around the OHL right now. Brantford continues to be strong, even though 5 of their players are away at Team Canada camp. So they're looking like they are still the team to beat in the East, and they may not still be done adding. But it was cool to see Evan Hedrick in the news. I don't think we've mentioned him on the podcast, Dave, but he's another young Sioux player that's one of the many young talented Sioux players that are in the Major Junior world, and obviously a brother to Owen, who gets his shot at the Erie Otters now after Owen went to the Memorial Cup with that team quite a few years ago. So good deal for both teams. Really, Erie gets a young player with some high upside, and then Kitchener gets an overager to boost them a bit for being at the top of the standings.
And see, and with Owen, you've been a guest on the show, and I know Owen pretty good. I've had some good times sharing some ice and some the 3-on-3 charity tournament here in the Soo, and didn't get a chance to play against him. He's a little bit younger than I am, but such an impressive defenseman, and winning an area is great. But they're the big thing is this is that time of year where you see, okay, some players are going to the World Juniors. You want some of those trades that happen for teams that are trying to bulk and to sell a little bit early. I talked about this a lot from the NHL side and from the OHL side, and just overall that I think selling early and buying early is not a bad idea. I know it's not sexy for trade deadline day when you just want to click the news and you're excited to see it. But if I'm a GM of a team, I don't give a shit. I swore. There's the only and first swear of the night that I don't care if people like what day I make my trades. If my team is going to be a team that I'm contending and believe to make a shot and to have a good run at the playoffs, I'm buying and investing early. And that's what also some teams that don't sell early is because they want to maximize their value. You talked about Carter George, right? That's a name that's going to be tossed around. Greyhounds. Is it going to be, they've made some goalie moves in their day. Jack Campbell, to name one, gave all haul for that guy. But honestly, there's an example here where we're going to see some exciting pieces and new faces to places. And seeing, I think Hedrick going over to kind of where it all started was with his brother. Pretty cool, right? That's a pretty cool little story. And for Sault Ste. Marie, we've had the pleasure of seeing a lot of players do well. And there's been a few players that have left Sault Ste. Marie to go do well, then get drafted recently too. So there's a lot of, when it comes to Sault Ste. Marie, we're a proud hockey town. But when it comes to the Ontario Hockey League, to see some movement, it's great. But when I think of the OHL right now, Trudes, and we talked about this last week, you got one side of the OHL when it comes to the standings, Brantford, who just, they running away, I would say, with the Eastern Conference. They got a 10-point lead right now. Ottawa's right there with 48 points, just to say a 10-point lead. But on second place, they have a 10-point lead, given how the division layout is. But they're only a few points up on Ottawa. But that division's very top. The conference is very top heavy, right? When you look at the Western Conference, a little bit more parity in there, right? You look at the Hounds or their Windsor, Kitchener, Flint. Obviously, Kitchener making the trade today to get Edwards over there to make that move, and the Hounds making the move that they did to bring in Fisher, Brady Martin going to the World Juniors soon. What are they gonna do when it comes to the now until after the World Juniors? What are they gonna do? London being a seller is so interesting. Like, you never hear that. I love it. That's music to my ears. I'm very excited to hear that. But there's still some players on teams that have assets to move, but it's going to be sold at King's ransom. It's going to be, I think prices are going to be really high. And I think this is the term I want to use for OHL teams. Because of how many teams are in the circuit to buy and in the circuit to think that they contend and do well, I think it's a buyer beware market in the OHL, Truths. I think it is, because sometimes these trades, it's not like the NHL, don't get me wrong. The Carter George is going to give you a haul, but now you are getting arguably, if not the best goalie in the Ontario Hockey League, okay, top in the CHL. So if you're buying them, I think you got to know that you're all in. So Greyhound fans, are they all in? Or are you looking at a team at Carter George and might look at another team that is Ottawa? They got good goaltending. See, like, I don't know what other team, there's other teams that are fit. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that, but like, I do not agree that it's a buyer beware. I'm just using the Hounds as an example.
I think is a very good fit for Carter George, because realistically right now they're 23-7 with a 17-year-old goaltender, right? So they're probably, when you're looking at it, they're probably the best fit for Carter George. But are they the best fit right now? Like, do they believe that now is their window? I mean, when I'm looking at their forward core here, they really only have one 19-year-old in Jasper Kuta. So, like, they're a young team, 2 19-year-old defensemen and a couple overagers. So they're a lot like the Greyhounds, where, they're even a bit younger than the Greyhounds this year. So are they really in a position to spend all the assets to go out and get Carter George right now? Or are they better off keeping those assets for later on, when their current group, who's as strong right now, they'll have the same group next year and the year after? Probably not the smartest decision. We've seen things like that happened before. But then you're looking at a team like Kitchener, Windsor, Brantford, they already have their goaltenders. So unless, I think that anybody and everybody will be checking in on Carter George, right? Because it's Carter George. But I mean, are you just going to willingly make a deal like that when you've already got a solid thing going with your goaltender? And dare I say, Landon Miller, I think, in my opinion, he's deserved to start for this team in January. I think as of right now, he has deserved the net in the way he's been playing the past couple months. And he's, you're looking at maybe a little bit of an unorthodox career, right? His numbers aren't flashy. Maybe he struggled in the past. Yeah, but a lot of people have struggled in the past. And the way he's played, the past month, he deserves the net right now. He's solid back there. And maybe it's a course of the Greyhounds being a stronger team defensively than we're used to seeing the past few years. I don't know, but right now he's playing solid, and the Greyhounds had their best game of the year, which I think, in my opinion, I've seen them play on Sunday against Owen Sound. So it's going to be up in the air. It's going to be interesting what happens to Carter George, if he's moved and where.
See, the big thing for me is looking at that. You mentioned it right there, Ottawa having a young goaltender they're going. That's why when I said it, I kind of held, because you think of bringing Carter George as a good veteran to bring in for the young guy, but you might have to move. I know I'm just saying young guy, but I don't want to, I'm just saying hypothetically, that'll be a piece of the deal potentially, right? And being the team that Ottawa is, I couldn't agree more that they don't have to do that. They can have this team next year and just be an absolute juggernaut and add next year when there's other players to look at buying. But it's definitely going to be interesting. I think that might also help the market with Carter George not be as expensive, but it's still going to be expensive to bring in Carter George to your hockey club. And from a World Junior end, he's the guy that's going to be leading Canada to a potential gold. Very excited about that team. Hopefully it's better than last year for the gold, which was an absolute joke to watch, in my honest opinion. But there's a lot of promise when it comes to goaltending in Canada now a little bit. I wasn't impressed about anything for the last few years that really jumped out at me a lot. But when I see Ivan Kovic, when I see George, when I see Rav, I'm a big Ravensburgen guy. I think that there's some potential there too. It's great to see that. And Carter George, I know I'm spinning a little bit here, but he's going to be someone who's going to get a haul if he is moved. But it's great to see some Canadian goaltenders come up and do that. I'm excited to see what he's going to do at the World Juniors, because that's going to increase his trade stock even more potentially, especially if he has a gold medal coming around his neck when he comes home from the World Juniors. Okay, so let's spin to with given a little bit of our time, spinning to the Soo Greyhounds here, Trudes, of course. We're nearing Christmas, and already looking at Christmas time, I go, geez, I can't believe we're already here. Time is flying by. I know when you look outside, like, oh yeah, it's Christmas time. But it's still a busy week, despite, they play this week twice. They got a Wednesday and they got a Thursday before they take their break. And they're not at home. Obviously, they're not home until after Christmas. But they got two games that are going to be very important to go into the break with momentum and to get some wins against, let's be honest, when it comes to the teams that they're playing, they got Saginaw on Wednesday, and I'm kind of taking your thunder with this, but they got Saginaw Wednesday and Thursday against Windsor. And when you look at Windsor, that's going to be a good game. That's kind of one of those games where I don't want to say measuring stick, because the Hounds, I believe, are contenders in the Western Conference. But it still is kind of maybe that centimeter measuring stick, not that meter stick measurement, because you want to see what your distance is between Windsor as well, and kind of a game where you can get closer to them in the standings as well. With 2 wins this weekend, if Windsor doesn't keep up to that pace, you can go in maybe tied if by the time the holiday break comes in, which is a big swing for momentum for the Greyhounds.
Yeah, David. This Greyhounds team they've really gained a lot of momentum the past month, especially the past 5 games. Like the growth from the end of November to now is crazy. And, I think that bringing in Lucas Fisher, they brought him in at a perfect time. And the Colin Fitzgerald trade played into it as well. And even Jeremy Martin, right? Going back to mid-November when they got Jeremy Martin, like the moves that they have made up to this point has really, really improved their team, improved their locker room chemistry, obviously, and then has really brought out, the compete and the results, the execution for this team. They won 5 in a row, and now, yes, like you said, they have the chance to go into Windsor and use it as kind of like a measuring stick. Early on in November, I would have told you that, almost blow it all up, trade this guy, trade that guy. Well, now, no, right? Like I would have been fired. But no, that we always knew that this team had it. We always knew that this team had something, that they should be contending, that this should be a contending year, and they're proving it now. So the Windsor game is going to be a huge, huge game. Yeah, not only to see where the Greyhounds are at and how they play them. They did beat them a little bit ago, 4-3 in overtime in Windsor. So hopefully that continues, the strong play in Windsor. So not only that, but also to catch them in the standings, because yes, they are 4 points back right now with the game in hand. So the game in Saginaw is just as crucial to catching Windsor, because the Spirit, obviously 9-15, they're lacking right now. They're down in the standings. So that's a must win on Wednesday before competing against the Spitfires on Thursday. Yeah, I thought the Greyhounds were really, really solid on Sunday. I thought it was their best game that they played all year. Like, I find that they are at their most dangerous when their D move the puck quick up the ice, and when they generate scoring chances off the rush, and they use their speed to enter the zone quickly. And I think Croskery and Fisher have had a huge, huge part in that. And it's just like, maybe it's just myself growing up as a defenseman. I just maybe appreciate it more, or I notice it more, but it's a pleasure to watch them start a play on the back end, because the puck moves quick and it moves fast, and it's on the forward stick in like lightning speed time. And that really puts pressure on the defense. And also the power play. The power play has gotten going. It's starting to do what it hasn't done all year. It's been 3 straight games with a power play goal. There might be more than that. They were 2 for 2 on Sunday. Like, this power play is getting going, which is helping them win games, because it wasn't in the start of the season, right? It would go 0 for 5, 0 for 6, and they would lose by 1 goal, lose by 2 goals. Well, now it's getting going. So it's really, really helping the offense and taking the pressure off Landon Miller and the defense to keep the puck out of the net. One more thing, Christopher Brown was named the OHL Cogeco Player of the Week, and like, he continues to have himself a breakout season. He's much more involved in the offense this year, a lot strong on the puck, has the confidence with it, and he's finding success, mostly setting up his teammates, but he's also scored some big goals too. He's got 2 OT winners this year, one against Windsor and one against Kitchener that just happened on Wednesday. So no, honestly, props to him for sticking with it. He's another one, a little bit of a non-linear development path there, but in his 19-year-old year, he's putting it together, and he's got a point per game. So that's a huge, huge boost for this club too.
And you see the side that I'd like to give a shout out to. There's a Greyhounds prospect who is GOHL prospect of the week too. Kalen McQueen. Great name, by the way. Great name. He had 2 games. He had 8 points in that tournament, the GOHL prospects game, which is something we talked about last year, that league, the things that have been brought up that I wish were around when I played, not because of me, just for anyone in Sault Ste. Marie. There's a lot of players that were my age group in the Soo and closer that could have benefited, but 17-year-old, okay, McQueen has 10 points to the first 8 games with Cambridge, starting the season with 10 points in the first, over the 20 games of the OJHL's Georgetown Raiders. The OJ's good league in Ontario as well. He played in Blind River for the Beavers, obviously. Beaver alum, so I retired. I got my heart there in Blind River, and was the 12th round pick of the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, 240th overall. So to see some of those later players, this is one of those examples. Is getting highlighted. He's obviously Player of the Week for December 8th to December 15th is where he was named as well. But there's other players that have won for the Greyhounds. Another player, William Campuntero, was another one that won back for the November 24th and 30th week that I wanted to make sure that I had noted. So I know when people see me on video, if I'm looking right, it's not because I'm doing whatever the heck over here. I'm doing the research and looking in for you to give you some news that you didn't know. Because don't tell me, anyone on that back end, that you knew Kalen McQueen unless you looked at OHL, CHL.ca, that you saw him that won. Okay? All right. That's thought I point that out. One sad note that I'll point out, Paul Gagne passed away, and that's a name that might not be too familiar with people, especially in our listeners' regions. But you know what? I think it's going to spark a lot of ears and get a lot of ears pointed up because of our NOJHL team, the Soo Thunderbirds, that is in the Soo, maybe in a former Thunderbird as well in Beaver. I had the opportunity to be a player against Paul Gagner, who was a OHL alum. He also spent time between Colorado, New Jersey, Toronto, and the Islanders. He won a Calder Cup with Springfield in 1990. He also, he played under, had like names of Claude Julien. He's been around a lot of smart individuals, and he played hockey until 1999. We played in Germany and Switzerland. I'll be honest, without getting into details because this doesn't matter, but this is one of the most historic and best coaches in NOJHL history and in junior around there. This guy is mined Abitibi. I know that they paid him. I don't know that for sure. I just know that they did. You know what I mean? It's one of those guys that you pay to coach your team. That's how good he was for NOJHL. This is a guy that could have been coaching at higher levels as he's went, but obviously the OHL mourns the losses with the subject set, but there's more leagues that mourn that as well. The OHL, the NOJHL, the community of Abitibi. I loved playing at that rink. The Eskimos rink was unbelievable. It was on the flickering eyes. It was wild. But Paul Gagner built a very good hockey program there and brought hockey to that Abitibi region and brought some good players in, like Marc-Alain Bégin. There's another name that people that know the NOJHL from my days, they're going to get their ears pointed up and say, oh, that's a name I haven't heard of in a long time. But Paul Gagner should be a name that everybody remembers. He's from Iroquois Falls too. So to be able to go coach there and give back to the community the way he did and was fantastic. And I only got the chance to meet him a few times. And one was in my rookie year, then one was in my last year. So a bit spaced out when I've had the conversations with him, but he was always complimentary of me and always very professional, always had a good image, and he definitely deserves time to be talked about on a lot of podcasts. I definitely give condolences out to his family and to those that were with him, not just OHL. I'm talking about through the NOJHL times and some players who were players for him. And I know a couple of them that I was talking to today that said, make sure you give him a shout out on your podcast. I know you record today or tomorrow is what they said. And I said, I would absolutely do that. And I'm glad to see that the OHL had a very nice post as well. So that's great to see, but it's obviously very sad to see the passing. Still, I feel at a young age, it's really unfortunate to see. He died at the young age of 63. Definitely sad, but he is a Windsor Spitfires alumni as well. One thing I mentioned. So coaching, player, he's done it all. So definitely condolences out to the Gagner family there. So Trudes, I wanted to, obviously this is our last show before the new year, but this is the joys of this time of year. The World Juniors are around the corner. Brady Martin was on a line with Gavin McKenna today at practice. Did I see that right? Oh my God, that's great. We love to see that. Does Gavin McKenna want to leave Penn State and, WHL and come over to play for the Grounds? Maybe I could start that rumor. Gavin McKenna, come on over. I got a great basement. It's baller out. You can have it rent free. Gavin McKenna, you want to come to Sault Ste. Marie? You can live here rent free. I'll pay for everything for you if you want to come live at the McCaig House. Because I know that one day when you make it in the NHL and you're up here, you'll be able to get me some free tickets. So I'll pay that off. But no, jokes aside, great to see the roster for Canada seems to be starting to shape out a little bit. I might not be correct on some of my predictions, which is okay. I may or may not be. But obviously, during the World Juniors, for some reactions and clips, you're going to have Trudeau and I are going to keep in touch with each other and likely do very phone recording clips, or we might jump on here for a few minutes, but there won't be any episodes unless there's something hot topic. Okay, Crosby gets traded, Gav McKenna is now a billet at the McCaig House, something like that. That's the kind of a type of news that we do for the Christmas holidays and the holidays. We'll be back in the New Year, Trudes, but we'll be in touch throughout Christmas, my friends. So I appreciate you taking the time, as always. But before I let you go, any final thoughts that you want to give about the Hounds, the CHL, OHL, or even the World Juniors before we officially sign you off?
No, I don't. It's going to be an interesting trade deadline. Sometimes you can predict what's going to happen pretty closely. Like, it never really pans out as you think, but I think this one's going to be more interesting just to see what the Greyhounds have left to do or what they think the next best fit for their current roster makeup is. And yeah, Brady Martin, it looked like, I've been following it on Twitter, the line combos for practices. It looks like they're trying to find that perfect fit to fit on the first line with McKenna. I mean, if they want somebody that's going to drive the play and create space for Gavin McKenna on that roster, Brady Martin's definitely going to compete for that spot because all Hounds fans know that that's what he is elite at doing. Maybe we haven't seen it to the full extent yet this season, but on the biggest stage for Team Canada, I'd put my money on Brady Martin. I'd always put my money on Brady Martin. So enjoy the holidays. Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy holidays. And thank you. Thank you to all the listeners, all the viewers. I have a lot of fun every time I come on here. So keep listening and keep interacting, and have a great, safe, and healthy holiday season.
Kind words from a great guy, Trudes. I appreciate that. Now, you know what the listeners get? They get to listen to me solo for a little bit talking football. Okay, usually when we talk in the pocket, there's 3-4 of us, but there's been some schedule issues sometimes this year, so they get football for me. So obviously I won't have you hang around for that to chill around with. So thank you, my friend, and we'll be in touch over the holidays with maybe hopefully some fun interactive clips for the listeners. But we'll be back in the new year with 2026 mindset for the Game Sports Podcast. And I'll say it on here because if you made it up to this point, rebranding, I'll just leave it there. Thanks, Trudes.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that's Jordan Trudeau, the legend himself. And now you're going to have just me, David McCaig. Let me give you a little chuckle. David Kegger, Mr. Electric Avenue McCaig. If you know, you know. If you heard up to this point and you heard it, comment below if you know the story of how Mr. Electric Avenue got connected to my nickname. I swear I'll get you a gift card. That's how I'm not going to name the value of it. If you are able to know the story, why I have that and have said that on here towards my nickname, I will get you a gift card. Comment it on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you comment, you get it. As long as you're not my producer in the background or a member on this show, I will give you a gift card. Big Christmas gift from me to you. In the Pocket. Look, I'm going to do In the Pocket for you here. And In the Pocket is partnered with Sports Center Bar and Grill, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario's best sports bar. We are approximately 10 minutes over. Usually we do our shows about an hour, so about 7 to 10 minutes over, actually. So it's going to be more of an expedited edition of In the Pocket. Obviously, when we have a guest on, especially like Evan, the statistician that he is, we allot a little bit extra time for our guests, but we're going to make sure that we follow our time parameters, in particular for our producer, producer in the background for editing, and also to ensure we keep you engaged with content that we are very excited to always share. In the Pocket, I'm going to be talking about some news this week that caught my eye, but also I'm going to be diving in more so the Pickem that I feel for this week before we wrap up the show. So not the usual 15-20 minutes of In the Pocket. You're going to get just under 5 within the Pocket for me. So speaking of the NFL, the landscape, the playoff picture is starting to pan out, and the playoffs are not going to have the Kansas City Chiefs in them. The Kansas City Chiefs are not going to be in the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes, obviously injured, and in a division where the Broncos took it all the way with 12-2 right now, they've clinched. They have clinched. You got the Chargers that are 10-4. Both teams just looking like absolute wagons. And looking at the AFC South, a lot of landscape has changed there. The Jags are first, and the Colts have fallen down to third. And you thought Phillip Rivers was going to get a good battle back last week, but that didn't happen the way that we, could have imagined it or wanted it to. But Phillip Rivers still looking pretty good out there, and there's still some football to be played there for Indianapolis. But when AFC North, the Steelers, big win by, of course, my team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, over the Dolphins. And when I look at the game against the Dolphins, it actually got a little bit more tighter in the fourth quarter, but that is to be deceiving. Okay, I know they got 12 points in the fourth quarter, but the Steelers really ran that game in the second and third quarter. The offense went 4 straight possessions with points, obviously with touchdown drives that led from the second, third, up into the fourth quarter. Very impressively done. Metcalf, and I remember sitting with my wife, and there was one of the touchdowns in the third quarter, and I said they're going to run a slant to Metcalf, and I called it. And I'll say it. Look, you can ask her. I'm not lying to you. This is a team that runs a very, I almost want to, dare I say, a simple offense. They run the football, but they do plays, and they look. Rodgers is trying to be a professor out there, and obviously, smart veteran that he is, he has weapons out there. I think Thielen's been a good add to the team, but Metcalf and Gainwell, Warren, these are guys that are going to have to really stand up if the playoffs want to be something exciting for those Pittsburgh Steelers. Looking at the AFC East, I can't believe I'm saying this. Patriots looking for real still. I know they're 11-3. They've been real for multiple weeks now, and I sound foolish for saying, oh, they look for real. I just can't believe this is a team who's been undefeated on the road. They're 5-3 at home, so this is a road team. Okay, this team battles 11-3. They have a game up on the Bills. I, in the right mind, did not think the Patriots were going to be first in their division, but obviously they're looking good. But I'm going to say it. I think this is a team that, yes, is really looking good and has a bright future, but is a first-round elimination team. Just saying. Get mad at me below, but I'm telling you, they're not going to, I don't think, go far. You look at the NFC, the Eagles. Okay, the juggernaut has been kind of shown how they're more human. The Giants, Commanders, had so much more expectations for the Commanders this year, but the Eagles looking like, obviously, not looking like, going to be the team that I'll say confidently coming out of the NFC East. The NFC North, that division, has lived up to the hype this year. Okay, the Lions underachieving, though, which is very unfortunate. My Super Bowl pick, but the Bears, looking for real. The NFC South, Buccaneers, Panthers battling it out. The Panthers, what? This team was absolutely abysmal last year. Now looking very good, battling. Even if they don't make the playoffs, they got to count this year as a win. And I know that's not always key when it comes to sports, but I think now this shows the growth of this team and pieces that are coming together. But the Buccaneers, I think, are going to be just too much. The NFC West, look at this division. The divisions are competitive, they're open, it's exciting. I still think that last year is way more exciting than this year is, but there's been some change in the league now. Kansas City is not there. The Lions, actually, as expected, aren't working out, despite that hurts my heart to say. There's been teams that have come up and shown that, they're for real, the Patriots and the Bears. The Rams, 37-year-old Matt Stafford. You got Aaron Rodgers at 42, Phillip Rivers at 44. These are some very good and warm storylines in the world of football. But when it comes to AFC and the NFC, you can still come at me in a different direction with this, despite what the Broncos' record is. I still think the Bills are still the team in the AFC East. And when I look at the NFC, I still think the Eagles, and I know Seahawks and Ram fans are not going to like that too much. But, that when it comes to playoff football, it's a little bit of a different animal. But I'm not saying that's my prediction. Those are just my key points right now. So touching on updating the standings that was, and for the prior week, Rivers being back, obviously Rodgers playing a good football game against the Dolphins. And when I look at this past week that obviously just passed, which was week 15, the games that stood out, that game with the Lions and Rams, 41-34. What a game that was. This is an offensive game. Jared Goff, easy for me to say, 3 touchdowns, 338 yards. Stafford against his former team, looking just absolutely, despite throwing an INT and throwing one less touchdown, this is somebody who looked very comfortable out there. And then I'm on Ross St. Brown, 164 yards, 2 touchdowns. What a great game. I think that game was so entertaining. A game that I had a bit more high hopes for was the Seahawks-Colts game, to be a bit more offensively, more in the 20s instead of the teens. But seeing Rivers out there, great to see. And obviously the Bills and Patriots being an absolute just mint of a football game, 35-31. The Bills showing that they're for real. 3 touchdowns by Josh Allen, who just recently learned that he is going to be a father. Haley Steinfeld's is pregnant, just in case you didn't know that. Eagles 31-0 to the Raiders. The Raiders, look, Kenny Pickett, look, that organization, okay, they're going through a transition. Let's just leave it at that. The last game that I want to mention is that I was a fan of this week was actually not what I expected. The Falcons-Buccaneers game, 9-28. I was pulling up the stats as I was saying that. Kirk Cousins, another veteran in the league, had a very impressive week. It was a season that we know is a loss for the Falcons. Kirk Cousins just looking a little bit vintage. Kyle Pitts was what I wanted to highlight here. I am a Kyle Pitts fan, not a Falcons fan by any which means. And yes, I'm a Steelers fan, and not because it says Pitts that I'm a fan of his. But this is someone that I had high hopes for as a top draft pick from tight end, 166 yards, 3 touchdowns. If you had him in fantasy or you were betting on him on FanDuel, you're loving it. This was such an entertaining football game. First quarter was but the second quarter, some back and forth, and the fourth quarter, right? The second and fourth quarter were just great to watch. Some good football was had at the beginning of the week. Now, transitioning to this week, two things. I'm going to get to the Pickem standings, and I'm going to talk about the Week 16. I'm going to talk about the game of the week and the Toilet Bowl game. And when I look at Toilet Bowl game, okay, I'm going to flat out tell you what the Toilet Bowl game is this week. And that is, maybe you're going to got your own. You can comment below, because there's a couple games this week that could be doozies of the Toilet Bowl and be candidates of it. But I'm going to go with the Jets and Saints. That's one game that I would skip over in a heartbeat, not watching that at all this week. When I'm looking at the game of the week, I'm probably looking at Thursday Night Football, Rams and Seahawks. Give me a lot of that. That is great to watch. But another one, a notable, Jacksonville and Denver, unrated afternoon game on Sunday. You got to love it. And when it comes to Sunday afternoon, Steelers-Lions, very big implication game between both teams. Will be exciting. The afternoon is going to be where you want to be on the couch, ready to watch some football. Then at night, you got Phillip Rivers against the 49ers. The Colts really wanting to get a win for Phillip Rivers that week. It is to win, to create a bit more interest when it comes to that standings in the NFL. So overall, though, Toilet Bowl is Jets and Saints, and game of the week for me is Thursday night, Rams and the Seahawks. So standings for our Pick'em, as I sit here and take a quick sip of water. The standings for our Pick'em, usually this is Justin's area to give feedback on, but Justin isn't here, okay? So I want to make sure that I clarify who is in first and who's in second. And no, it's not me. And then I'll give you the picks for my selection this week. So from Pick'em from first to last, we got Hike's picks in first. Then you got the David's decision in second, 2-point spread between myself and Justin. And then in third and fourth, we have EJ in third, the broken wheel, and fourth being Tyler having a very big struggle this year. Heiko having a 63% and me a 62% selection rate. So getting real tight as we hit the last 3 weeks of this is 16, 17, 18, 3 weeks to go in the NFL. And a lot can happen, especially when there's only a 2-point spread. So let me know who you think is going to get the win in the standings for the Pick'em standings. So that's the Game Sports Podcast Pick'em. We do it through Yahoo, and we do picks amongst each other. And if you want to join next year, just comment below and reach out. We'd love to have an account with fans and challenge ourselves against fans as well. And then maybe we can put your picks on here. We're going to get towards the end here as we hit certainly a more longer show than what we're used to. Rams, Seahawks. I got the Rams. I'm choosing the Eagles over the Commanders, Bears over the Packers, Bills over the Browns. I am going to go with the Chargers over the Cowboys. I'm actually going to choose the Titans over the Chiefs. You heard it here. Titans over the Chiefs. I'm going to choose the Bengals over the Dolphins. I'm going to choose the Saints over the Saints over the Jets, Vikings over the Giants. I'm going to go with the Buccaneers over the Panthers, Broncos over the Jags, Falcons over the Cardinals. Now you got the Steelers and the Lions. I'm no bias on this. I am absolutely no bias. I am going to go with the Lions over the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Texans over the Raiders, the Patriots over the Ravens, and I got the Niners over the Indianapolis Colts. Unfortunately for Justin and you Colt fans out there, I am going to get the 49ers to beat the Colts 28-18, the Bengals 32, the Dolphins 21. And I'm going to say for the least points this week is 100% going to be the Las Vegas Raiders. Scoring the most points this week, as I look at the teams and the matchups one more time, the most points this week, I am going to go with the Buffalo Bills. I think they're going to run hot shot over the Cleveland Browns. There's my selections for the Pick'em, and we'll see what next week brings for the standings. And then the following week, by the time we come back, the week of January 5th, there's going to be multiple weeks of football that have just went by, and the standings might have a shift, or they might not have a change. You have to make sure you tune in to see what that will look like. So, nonetheless, this has been In the Pocket, partnered with Sports Center Bar and Grill, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario's best sports bar, 5 years in a row, best wings as well. And this has been an extended edition of the Game Sports Podcast, but we had Top Shelf, Chuck-a-Buck, And we had in the pocket, you had me in the introduction talking John Cena's heel turn and his farewell tour reaction that went a little bit longer. Look, it's been a show of giving you all the content that you need and to give you exactly what you need to hear going into the holiday break for the Game Sports Podcast. I'm just here to remind you as well, instead of just hearing me talk for the last hour and a half approximately, we will not, and remind you, will not have a show next week or the following week. We will not be back until the week of January 5th. So we will have an upload on that week. January the 8th will be our next episode, but please keep an eye on all of our social medias as we plan to have uploads of social media interaction opportunities, especially for the World Juniors, for you to enjoy. And there's still a lot of sports going on during that time. There could be an Olympic team announced to saying, or there could be some football news because of games at Christmas. Heck, maybe there'll be some basketball news. Maybe Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to be traded. Maybe he's Raptors bound. And maybe Anthony Davis gets traded. Lots of news that we can touch up on, even if we don't have an episode. So keep an eye on our social media. And that's where you can follow us on TikTok, Instagram, at the Game Sports Podcast, as well as Facebook. And you can follow us on 91N. That's a YouTube channel where you have video editions of the game, and Spaces, which is through Today and Village Media, Spotify, Apple, wherever you find your podcast. Like, follow, subscribe, wherever you are. The interaction really makes us feel that the hard work that we do to give you this content, that it pays off, the continuous interaction from you. So we always appreciate it. And special shout out to Podbean. They've been around with us from the beginning. You can see the amount of episodes on there, over 1,500 episodes that were partnered with and with the Game Sports Podcast, previously the Game Sports Show. Lots of content for you to enjoy and check out there. Over 1,500 episodes to be exact. It's a lot of listening that you'd have to do to get caught up to this point, but it's available for you there. Nonetheless, until 2026, and unless you hear us on Interaction, I appreciate everything that everyone has been a part of from January to December of this year in 2025. Excited for 2026. We have a lot of change coming in 2026, a lot of good change that we feel that you're going to enjoy, and a lot of credit to, again, the students that are with yours truly here on the Game Sports Podcast and 91N. A lot of great things to look forward to that we're excited for you to be part of as well. 2026 will be even our best year yet, and we're looking forward to you being a part of it. So until next year, dad joke for you, I'm here to remind you to keep your stick on the ice, swing your bats, catch your touchdowns, drain your threes, and shoot your shots. Booyah.